Hello and welcome to the Fantasy
Football.
Fanatics podcast. So today we are going to be talking about the NFL draft, the prospects, the skill position players from at least the first two rounds, and we'll mention some notable names in the third and fourth rounds. But we're also going to be talking about the winners and losers of the receiving cores and running back cores of each NFL team, because obviously a lot has changed. There's some people lost their jobs as running backs potentially, and some people's wide receiver cores got more crowded.
Yeah. The only thing that there is that we're going to be getting through a lot of players and we're more identifying, again, how it impacts the team more than the specific skill sets of those individual players.
Yeah, and we got a lot of players to get through, so we'll probably not be going too in depth on any particular player. But of
Yeah.
course, we start off with Joe Burrow at number one, which we weren't surprised. I don't
Yeah.
think anybody was surprised.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I really like him as a prospect. From a fantasy football standpoint, I typically don't love to rely on the receiving options of a rookie quarterback because typically they don't put up a ton of numbers through the air. But I mean, I think Burrow, I think he's a chance to break the rookie quarterback throw passing touchdown record. What do you think?
I yeah, I think he's got all the skill sets and that anticipation, or they say the quick vision that you need because it picks up the pace when you go into the NFL. So I think that paired with through the receivers that he's going to get, it is only leaps and bounds of what he could do.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll probably be a QB2, a good backup quarterback to take a chance on because he's got a pretty good receiving core there already. So
Yeah.
we can move on to Tua. And of course, he went to the Dolphins. In our mock draft, I thought he might switch with the Chargers, but you thought he would go to the Dolphins. But I mean, I'm glad he landed there. I don't know if he's going to start week one. I think he's going to sit behind Ryan Fitzpatrick at least at the beginning of the season. But I think he's interesting in Dynasty.
Yeah. I think, again, they were going for best prospect available over a safe pick. And I think I agree with it. And the payout for a large gamble like this could be immense compared to a safer pick with Justin Herbert. And I think fantasy standpoint, I'm not sure. I think it'll be a good competition in the QB room, but it really depends on, again, how they view his health records with the fact and who's winning that QB war in the Dolphins.
Yeah, he reminds me a little bit of how Russell Wilson plays, how he's got some mobility to his game. It's not Lamar Jackson level, but he's got a pretty good amount that can contribute on the ground.
Yeah, yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
we'll move on to Justin Herbert, and he's another player. He's more interesting in Dynasty. He's not somebody I'd be interested in drafting this year because, I mean, the Chargers have said they're interested. They like Tyrod Taylor, so I think he's going to sit behind Tyrod Taylor like Baker Mayfield did behind Tyrod Taylor, which I guess that's what Taylor is. He's just a bridge quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, they feel really confident in Tyrod Taylor. And to be honest, if Tyrod does well, then, they could still roll with him depending on the next year, too. And Justin Herbert is definitely the quarterback they want in the future. You just don't know how soon he'll start.
Yeah, I mean, if Tyrod Taylor started the whole year and he played well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Herbert would get some experience and learn more of the offense, so that would just help him in the future.
Yeah, and it
All right, now
helps him.
I'll go
Helps
ahead.
him. All right, you go. You go. We said all we need to say.
All right, well, number 12th overall, the Raiders went with Henry Ruggs, which was a big surprise that he was taken over Judy and Lamb. But my the way I feel about Henry Ruggs is it helps the options on the Raiders, specifically for Josh Jacobs. I think it opens up the field for him because Henry Ruggs, of course, he's got that blazing speed. So I think it's going to open up the field for him. And I think it's actually best case scenario for Darren Waller because I don't think Henry Ruggs is going to take a bunch of targets away as somebody like Jerry Judy or CeeDee Lamb would have. But he's going to, like I said, same thing with Josh Jacobs. I think he's going to open up the field for Darren Waller, who thrives underneath. I mean, he didn't have very many deep balls. He was he thrived in that short intermediate area. So Like I said, I think that helps Waller, helps with the offense overall.
Yeah, I think you get a player that is a great player on himself, but he's really improving the rest of the team by just being on the field. And you improve the fantasy standpoints of all the other players, and then you saw the potential in his big playability. Um, I think you have people mentioning his how great of his hands are, even with his fast speed. But again, you also deal with Derek Carr, who doesn't he's not a deep shot type quarterback. Yeah,
Yeah, Henry Ruggs this year, I might take a flyer at the very end of my draft, but he's not somebody I'm particularly interested in, at least for this year.
yeah, he's not going to be like if he does do well, I feel like it's not going to be on a consistent basis. I feel
Oh,
like he
very
has
true.
that early career Will Fuller type. Will Fuller more for the injuries, but he would have a big game, not big game.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Next, we'll move on to Jerry Judy, who went to the Broncos. And I mean, I thought this was a really good pick. Honestly, I didn't think Judy or Lamb would be here at this point, but it definitely helps Drew Lock, who this year I'm not particularly super excited about. But my thoughts with Jerry Judy is the Broncos, they're a run first team. Drew Lock, he's not established at this point, so I'm not very excited about Judy this year. And Dynasty is very interesting, but for being the number two option, because I think Cortland Sutton's still the alpha number one receiver there. Run first team, second option. I'm not super excited about him, at least for this year. He has potential if Drew Lock comes out and has a great year, but other than that, I'm not super excited, at least this season.
Yeah, I mean it's not notorious for rookie wide receivers to really stand out in a fantasy standpoint ever in their first year.
Yeah,
I mean, what AJ Brown did and what Terry McLaurin were able to do him more towards the beginning of the season. That's not usually the standard for what rookie receivers are able to do, even with the outstanding potential that they have. I think Jerry Judy fits in really well as that wide receiver two slot option, and you're really more gambling on how Drew Lock will do rather than what Jerry Judy will do.
agreed. Well, I'm just gonna go ahead and move on to CeeDee Lamb to the Cowboys, which was a big surprise as it was Henry Ruggs. I mean, I was shocked. They didn't have a huge hole receiver, but I do know that they lost Randall Cobb, and I kind of don't fault them necessarily because he was the best player available. But I think this slightly dings the value of Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper, but it really helps Dak Prescott.
Yeah, it was so surprising. One, CeeDee Lamb again should never have fallen that far.
Hmm.
And the fact that, I mean, Jerry Jones was like, I'm gonna get this great, amazing wide receiver that no one wanted to pick before me, and he does that, limits the people behind him, and gets three amazing wide receivers for Dak Prescott to throw to. I mean, when you have a competing room, of course, not one of them is going to really excel over the other. I believe that C-Lamb or rookies, they could have got a good, pretty equal share out of those three people. And but Dak Prescott, he's kind of wide receivers galore. And they're really, I think, now banking on a amazing offensive output each game, and then seeing what the defense is going to do.
Yeah, I mean, in free agency, they prioritized offense, so I thought that they would go defense here, but they didn't. And I didn't think Dak Prescott would be able to replicate the season he had last year, but now I think that he definitely could. And he's I think he's definitely locked in as a top five quarterback now since he has these three great options and he has the rushing ability. So definitely helps him. I have him on my
I
dynasty
think,
team. I'm excited.
yeah, I think one more thing to add is that I might be questioning Ezekiel Elliott's um, share of what he's going to get. I'm not sure if he's going to get as he's going to still be a workhorse in a lesser manner because of all the options they're going to have on offense.
Yeah, it seems like they're evolving to more of a pass first offense when they've always been a run first offense.
Yeah.
That's a very good point there. But then the next receiver that was taken was Jalen Rager to the Eagles. And I know he's not your favorite receiver, but he's a talented receiver. And the Eagles, they did need to add somebody. They still have Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson there, but they're both injury prone and they don't have much depth behind them. So I think it was good that they took a receiver here. I think he probably is the most clear path for targets out of all the receivers taken in the draft, just because of the injury concerns for Deshaun Jackson or Jeffrey. If one of them goes down, Rager, he could be the number one or two receiver on the team. And I mean, of course, they have Carson Wentz there, who he's a great quarterback. But that, like I said, that just could be based on injury to one of those players, which I don't like to bank on that. But it's definitely a concern with those two guys.
I mean, I don't think I really have much to add there. I think from what you hear, what I can at least admit is that he's one of the top, still very fast receivers in the draft. So you're still adding a great dimension of speed with Deshaun Jackson. If everyone's healthy, stays healthy, which I mean, again, banking on the past and banking what's gonna happen, I feel like at least one of them is gonna get injured again. Um, he's primed for wide receiver two, even wide receiver one if both get injured, and you can always have a deep bench with him.
Yeah, and even if he is the wide receiver one, I'd definitely be interested, but I wouldn't be super excited because of the fact that they use the running backs and the tight ends so much in the passing game.
Yeah,
But he's definitely interesting. I think he's would be at least flex worthy if those two guys were to go down. Maybe even if one of them were to go down.
yeah. I mean, he goes more wide receiver one for the team, but not wide receiver one for the fantasy output.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the next receiver taken just one pick after him, 22nd overall, was Justin Jefferson to the Vikings, and I really liked him more as a slot receiver. I don't think he was as productive on the outside, so it does worry me a little bit since Adam Thielen does work in the slot a lot of the time. But I think it was a good pick overall because of course they lost Stephon Diggs. What are your thoughts on Justin Jefferson?
He was actually someone that I looked into and actually disregarded for a large majority before the draft. And I know the hype was building around him definitely the past 2 or 3 days before it started. And so when I then go to view him again, I mean, there's tons of potential. And I think he has the ability to either go outside or be in the slot. And I feel like they're thinking they could switch up Adam Thielen too if they want to try him on the outside. And I think getting a lot of variables with where you're going to place Justin Jefferson. Um, but I think it's a solid pickup, and I feel like he is going to be consistent. I think he's going to have a year getting adjusted to it from a fantasy standpoint. I don't think he's really going to shine this year, but I think year two he could really blossom.
I agree with that, and like I said, I don't think he right now can thrive on the outside, but giving a year or two to develop, I think he could be a really good receiver. He has the tools, but since he's in a run first offense, kind of like I said with the Broncos, it's run first offense, but they have a better quarterback in Kirk Cousins. It doesn't excite me too much for the number two option for the Vikings, but I mean, like you said, rookies don't usually produce that much, but we saw last year, the end of the season, some produced. Who knows? Maybe if their defense doesn't do as good and they have to pass more, he could be a great option.
That's
But
true.
he's definitely a great dynasty ad.
Yeah, dynasty definitely.
All right, then we move on to Brandon Ayuk to the 49ers, who I know you were a fan of.
Hmm.
49ers, they lost Emmanuel Sanders in free agency, so they're slotting Ayuk in and right where they left off pretty much. And same argument I had for the Vikings. This is a run first offense, and I probably don't even like him as much as Jefferson this year because I believe in Kirk Cousins more as a quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, um, I think it's interesting. They're run first offense, but I think with the touches that Brandon Ayuk gets and what Kyle Shanahan comes up with, you have the ability to get him open. They say on the reverse schemes and play action where he's going to be open because of the play design and not just because of his natural ability. And what's really, oh my gosh, what's really exciting about him is then the after the catch ability. And he might depending on how Samuel was last year, I feel like he could go up to Debo Samuel's. He was saying Samuel's ability of what he did last year.
Yeah, and since Kyle Shanahan is just a great offensive mind, I think he's going to get him into to open space. And this pick just helps the team a whole lot They were in the Super Bowl last year. And I mean, losing Emmanuel Sanders, that was tough. So to be able to replace him with somebody young like this is great for the team.
Yeah, you know,
Well,
I
next,
think, yeah,
next move on to Jordan Love on the Packers, which, there's not any fantasy implications for him this season, but it's just a puzzling move when I feel like Rodgers has at least 2 or 3 years left, and you don't get him weapons. And they didn't even draft a single receiver in this draft, which is crazy to me. Aaron Rodgers must be very upset. And Devontae Adams is a big winner out of this draft because they didn't draft a receiver at all. So he's going to be getting a target share just like he did last year.
yeah. It's completely puzzling. I mean, the only thing I can think is that Matt LaFleur is like, okay, he's dynamic in a project, and if we project him until Aaron Rodgers' retirement, imagine what he could be after he retires. Um, but I really think when you're going for the end of Aaron Rodgers' career, um, that you want to try to help him, and not just do what they just did. And so, sorry, my dog just hit my door, so it kind of distracted from what I was saying. Anyways, I think that the implications of what he could do is why they drafted him. But again, fantasy standpoint, no wide receiver, prime for wide receiver one time again. Yeah,
Yeah, and they're still in that Super Bowl window for Aaron Rodgers because they were in the NFC Championship, correct?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're a game shy of having a Super Bowl appearance, and you get Aaron Rodgers back up. It's crazy to me because the Saints did the opposite. They went and added Emmanuel Sanders. They drafted a guard center in the first round to help Drew Brees, and the Packers did the complete opposite for Rodgers.
I mean, yeah, it was not a good draft. I mean, you can't sugarcoat it. You, you just hope that they were able to get the same production out of the players they had last year to at least get another playoff berth, which I think they have the capability of doing. But I mean, if you're going Super Bowl, I think you need a little bit of help on the wide receiver two, wide receiver three territory.
Agreed.
Yeah,
All right. Well, the last pick in the first round, the Chiefs took Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which is just crazy because the Chiefs is one of the best systems for a running back to thrive in. I mean, we saw anybody. I mean, Damian Williams was great when he was healthy. You saw in the Super Bowl, and I don't even think he's a great running back, but he thrived because that system's so good. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's a smaller guy, but he's super agile, great catching the ball, which Andy Reid likes when guys catch the ball. I do too for fantasy football. This just seems like a perfect fit for the Chiefs offense.
yeah. He's definitely a player that I would be excited for a fantasy standing. I mean, I don't think maybe people are going to draft him that high, of course, but if you get him as a flex, I think that could be a good gamble. I really think that could be a good gamble for a starting rookie running
Yeah,
back.
I think the hype train might roll up on him, and he might go in the third or fourth round like David Montgomery last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, that might be the case. His catching ability, that's good. That's what's going to put him through to the top.
Yeah, yeah, and I think he's going to be the number one pick overall in dynasty drafts because, and I mean just in dynasty rookie drafts because none of the other running backs had a particularly fantastic landing spot like this for a clear path for touches and a great offense. So that's who I would take number one in dynasty rookie picks.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving on to round two, we saw two wide receivers drafted right at the top. First of them was T. Higgins to the Bengals. Uh, I know you said that you like that. I think the Bengals already had a pretty good receiving core between Green, Boyd, Ross, and Auden Tate. I think all four of them showed. Well, of course, AJ Green didn't play last year, but I think all four of them are very capable. I like this for the future. I don't like it this year, but for the future, I think he's going to be well set up to replace AJ Green in that offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think fantasy standpoint, yeah, that sucks. They have four amazing wide receivers. No one's really going to stand out. But I think Joe Burrow's going to spread the ball really well, being the type of QB he is. Um, I think what this added was you now have a wide receiver on the team that plays every single different type of wide receiver you could possibly want. You have a jump ball threat, speed receiver, an overall physical freak, and just developing slot receivers. And you get that, and you just have a whole bunch of possibilities when they're healthy. And I really feel like if AJ Green goes down again, or say John Ross goes down, he's gonna get a good target share. Um, Not like the highest, but he's definitely gonna be lookout for um, a high-end bench player to be able to just go up to that flex option as soon as you need it.
Yeah, if he can just jump Auden Tate in the wide receiver depth chart, which I think he could do, John Ross and AJ Green. I mean, when's the last time they both played a full season? I don't know if John Ross ever has. AJ Green hasn't done it in a while, and he's getting older. So yeah, he could definitely be relevant this season because of those guys being so injury prone, and I that's why it's a great pick for the Bengals because those guys do have injury concerns, and they draft him, and he can grow with Joe Burrow, and like I said, potentially replace AJ Green in the future.
Yeah, I mean, when you speak dynasty, again, it's a clear go for him in dynasty. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and one guy who I actually love in Dynasty and redraft is Michael Pittman to the Colts.
Hey,
And
don't.
this is one of my favorite landing spots for a receiver to go. I was like, okay, the Colts, if they get a good receiver opposite of T.Y. Hilton with Phillip Rivers there, it's just going to be a great landing spot. And sure enough, it's somebody that you absolutely love in this draft class. And I'm really liking him for this, even just this season, right off the bat. I think him and T.Y. Hilton complement each other really well. T.Y. Hilton, of course, he's getting a little older, but he's this fast all-around speed receiver. And Michael Pittman's got the big body. He can be a great red zone threat. I mean, he played all over the field and did well. So this helps Phillip Rivers too, who could actually be a borderline low-end QB1, high-end QB2. Uh,
Yeah,
Tell me how much you love him.
I love him. I mean, we were both gonna be so happy if he went to the Colts, and he's going. I really feel like he's gonna blow up. He's really gonna blow up his rookie year with the consistency that Phil Rivers will find him in the middle of the field or as that first down receiver. I really think that he's gonna become that with T.Y. Hilton being that deep threat, being that big play more ability, but for that consistent receiver, that Michael Thomas that just gets it to get that first down more than that big playability. I really think he could develop into that. And he was for any other draft class, he's taken in the first round. I really feel that. And he's he's just gonna do
Agreed.
so good. Yeah. I mean I have no complaints. You guys already know how I feel about him. It's just a matter of time I feel before he becomes a superstar.
Yeah, and I don't think he hurts T.Y. Hilton drastically either. I think T.Y. Hilton, he's still locked in as that number one receiver, and he's going to have those big play games. So, like I said, I think they complement each other really well. I love the landing spot. Do you have anything more to say?
I mean, the only downside I could say is if Phil Rivers really degrades in his playmaking ability. I mean, but I believe that they're going to bring out the best in each other.
I agree with that. All right, well, moving on to DeAndre Swift, running back for the Lions now, and kind of crowds the backfield a little bit. I mean, we've seen Kerryon Johnson has been injury prone, but we've also seen that he's a great talent too. So that's disappointing because I like Kerryon Johnson, but I can't deny the fact that he's not been able to stay healthy. But overall, this backfield, I I kind of want to avoid it for this season.
Oh yeah, I don't think they have a strong backfield for fantasy standpoint, but for the team itself in general, they're switching to preserving Kerryon Johnson, and they want to get that one-two punch, get that ability to have the best from both players. And I think DeAndre Swift jumps everyone but Kerryon Johnson, so it's just those two just getting the best out of running back they can, and then if he gets injured, they still have a viable running back to use.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
I just hate split backfields, but I think it's really smart from the Lions standpoint because they can't trust Kerryon Johnson with a full workload,
Mhm.
and I would feel the same way probably. So DeAndre Swift and Kerryon Johnson, I don't think either one of them. DeAndre Swift has a potential, but I wouldn't ideally like him to be a workhorse on my NFL team because of his frame. But I think they're gonna do very good together, being splitting the backfield because they'll be fresh. So I think it's going to help the Lions quite a bit, and it helps Stafford because when Kerryon Johnson went down, they didn't have a great second running back, one that was capable pass catching too. So if of course, if Stafford can stay healthy too, but overall in his career he has stayed healthy. But yeah, this season I'm not super excited for the Lions backfield.
Yeah, fantasy standpoint, it's not gonna work. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's a good decent dynasty ad. He could take over that backfield potentially. But I'll
Yeah.
move on.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah,
I think just in general for Matt Patricia, they're in a do or die type year, him and his GM. So they're gonna do everything they can. And I still think he's solid for that injury. You always have to plan for injuries, but again, you just don't know.
and if you take one of them and one of them gets injured, then the guy remaining is going to be a great asset to have, and probably a good running back too to have
Yeah.
in that situation. But all right, move on to Jonathan Taylor, who I think is the best rushing capable running back in this draft class. Goes to the Colts, which is really great landing spot if Marlon Mack isn't there. But they have a great offensive line with a great rushing running back now. So it's just, I think it's a great fit for his play style. And I don't know if Marlon Mack is just out the door now. He is a big loser from this, but I think Jonathan Taylor will probably take over the backfield more so towards the end of the season. I think he'll be split in touches towards the beginning. He might need to develop the pass blocking and maybe pass catching, but Philip Rivers likes to throw to the running backs. So if Jonathan Taylor takes over this backfield and he's catching passes from Philip Rivers, I think he has the potential to be an RB1.
Yeah, this really, I mean, I don't like it because, I love Marlon Mack and he always does well when he's not injured. And I think with what I just said, for a team standpoint, they're just trying to get the most out of both of the players without wearing them down. And I think with that 1-2 punch, if they stick with it the whole year, yeah, it's gonna be bad for fantasy, but really great for the Colts. And it really depends. I think you'll see the best of Marlon Mack with him not rushing it every time because he's gonna be fresh, more fresh when he does his runs. And if he does great, then I really think they're still gonna be splitting it by the end of the year.
I just believe in Jonathan Taylor as a talent, so I'd be willing to take a shot on him for that potential. But yeah, I wouldn't draft him anything more than a flex probably at this point.
Yeah, I'm not gonna agree with that.
Oh, and also people are going to be all over Jonathan Taylor next year because Marlon Mack, his contract ends after this year, and I have a feeling that they're not going to, you know, have him return to the team with Jonathan Taylor being there. So next year, especially for Dynasty, if you get him now, he's going to be a great asset in the future.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well, moving on to Laviska Shenault went to the Jaguars, and I think it's not too bad of a landing spot. DJ Chark is the alpha number one receiver there, but Shenault could take over as that number two receiver. He's a great weapon for Gardner Minshew. This helps Gardner Minshew a lot, which actually the beginning of last year, we saw he was actually putting up good fantasy numbers. So Minshew, this helps his potential to be a low-end quarterback one. What do you think?
Yeah, it definitely really helps Gardner Minshew. Of course, I'm more thinking about the wide receiver standpoint. I think weapon is a good way to always describe him. I don't think wide receiver is really gonna stand out until he has a few years in the league. Um, a person I'm trying to think of to compare him to, it just came to my mind, is I mean I'm not gonna be able to think of it. He was on the Bears, went to the Patriots, more for his return ability than wide receiver ability. If you can fill in that name, think about it while I'm talking. But anyways, I think he's gonna be great. I think he's gonna be a lot of how he was used in college as a dump off option to get those yards after the catch, and it's definitely gonna help Gardner Minshew. I don't think they're really gonna lose yards from that, and Gardner Minshew's value goes up. DJ Charks goes up because of spreading that awareness of the defense they're going against. So I think it's a win-win for the people that were there and the potential that LaVisca has.
Well, am I gonna think of is Cordero Patterson? Is that who you're thinking of?
Yeah, that was him. I think he has that big body. He had that run through players type ability, and they used him more when I was watching him with the Patriots as throw out to the side, see what he does with it after he catches it. I really think that's what Laviska is going to be used most likely as.
Can't disagree too much there. All right. Well, moving on to Cole Kmet, who the Bears drafted, the tight end. And I think what happened is the Bears, they got a letter in the mail and they opened it up and it said, to win in the NFL, you have to have the most tight ends because now that added the 10th tight end to their roster, which it just baffles me. Why did they take a tight end? And they didn't have a first round pick and they take a tight end with their second round pick. It's just crazy to me. I don't know what they're doing, but I think he could emerge as the best tight end out of that group in a couple of years. But they just signed Jimmy Graham, so right now it doesn't matter too much. But that's crazy. They had 10 tight ends now, but they actually just released one, so now they're down to 9. But still, that's 9.
I really like that mail thing you did. I didn't think you were gonna do that. Yeah, he's definitely. I mean, I think he automatically goes up to the tight end two of the Bears. I mean, you have Jimmy Graham there, experience with the tight end position. Obviously, they're worrying about his age. I assume with that pick, and if anything happens to him, who's going to be next tight end up? And I think Cole Kmet has the ability to work his way up the chart naturally, and but this year, it's just it's a shot in the dark. I have
Yeah,
no I have no idea what's going to come out of the tight end position for the Bears.
yeah. And last year, it seemed like they were trying to find a tight end that could stay healthy. Maybe this is their only option. But it's just like they they didn't have a first round pick. Like, why would their first pick of the draft be a tight end? It's crazy to me. But yeah, this year he's not anybody I'm interested in unless Jimmy Graham goes down, maybe as a free agent pickup.
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted them to get a wide receiver first, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll move on to KJ Hamler, who the Broncos picked up at receiver. They double dipped at receiver here, and he just adds to the depth of the receiving core. I don't think he's, of course, going to jump Judy or Sutton. He might not even jump Deshaun Hamilton, but he has the chance to and be the slot receiver. I'm not interested in him in this year. It's just good depth move. And Drew Lock, he's a good big beneficiary from this because they got Judy and another receiver. You have any thoughts on that?
Uh, I see it more as depth and a potential project that could get a big outcome. I think Deshaun Hamilton's got it, unless he really shows something in training camp. But he has a lot of potential, and I mean, you could look in the future as having really three great wide receivers on the Broncos in like 2 or 3 years.
All right. Well, the next receiver taken was Chase Claypool to the Steelers, and before the combine, they said, "Man, this guy's too big. He's probably too slow to be a wide receiver. He should be a tight end." But then he went to the combine, ran a 4.42. So they're like, "Okay, yeah, this dude is like gonna play wide receiver." I mean, he's similar athletic profile to Calvin Johnson, although he's not nearly a prospect. But I think it's a great ad for the team. They had Deontay Johnson, who I think had a great year last year, and they James Washington as well as Juju Smith-Schuster, and I don't know, maybe he could develop as one of the top outside receiving options because Deontay Johnson he wasn't really working the outside much. He was mostly on the inside,
Mhm.
and Juju can do both. So there's potential here in Dynasty this year. Not very interested.
Yeah, potential dynasty, and I think the team that I really think the team everyone's forgetting about is the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's like they have an off year, and it's like
Agreed.
no one's really thinking about them anymore. But Big Ben, you know how he loves to spread the ball around. 1 year removed from him, and but still you know that he's going to do. It's definitely a passing offense, and
Mm-hmm.
I think as the potential for a wide receiver three, he has that strong capability as a flex option for the team because of they don't they go to tight ends not as much as other teams. They use their running backs not as much as other teams. It really focuses around those wide receivers, and it's really big play potential. I had a knock on Claypool for that lack of natural catching ability, but I mean I can always be proved wrong, and We'll see how that transfers to the field.
All right, we're gonna move on to Jalen Hurts. The Eagles take their backup quarterback, I guess. And I know a lot of Eagles fans are not very happy about this. We've seen Wentz has been injury prone. I don't think it was the best move, but if Wentz does get hurt, Jalen Hurts has that rushing ability, so I could potentially be interested in him as a flyer against a good streaming defense.
Yeah, I think something I asked, I was reading something about comparing him to Taysom Hill. I really don't. Was Taysom Hill ever? He had great playability for when he was used. But was he ever fantasy relevant?
Taysom Hill, he had some big plays, but he's not anybody I want to rely on necessarily.
Yeah, I haven't really looked into him that much. I mean, I feel like they might use him like that, but Dynasty maybe. I mean, he definitely was a project. It's just I don't really have much to say on him. I don't know much about him.
Yeah, I just like rushing quarterbacks for fantasy, but I'm not going to draft him, especially because I expect Wentz to be healthy. And he hasn't been healthy all that much, but we've seen some quarterbacks that started out being injury prone and have grown out of that. So I think Carson Wentz could do that.
Drew.
Yeah. And I think Stafford or Roethlisberger, I think
Probably
it's Stafford.
Roethlisberger.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
mm,
it's it's not very notable for fantasy Jalen Hurts, but it's just a name to keep an eye on for now.
yeah. All
And
right.
then next player up is a player that I absolutely loved was Cam Akers, running back to the Rams. The landing
Wait. Can I
spots,
say something?
yeah,
JP, tell me how much you love him.
I really love him. He's good. Yeah, I
Uh,
don't love him as much as Kenyon Drake this year, but those are two guys that I really love.
yeah.
But the landing spot's pretty good. Of course, they got rid of Todd Gurley. The only big concern that I have with this pick really is that Daryl Henderson, they drafted him in, I think, the second round last year. So they took a second round running back 2 years in a row. But Daryl Henderson, he didn't get on the field much last year. And that concerns me a little bit because I thought he was a talented running back coming out of college. But if he wasn't getting on the field, it's like maybe he wasn't showing enough in practice. Maybe he just needed to develop potentially. But Cam Akers, he has the potential to take over that Todd Gurley role because McVay, for the most part, likes to use a workhorse running back.
Yeah, I see huge potential as someone that could emerge as like the unexpected Miles Sanders or uh, not the one you prime to see, Devin Singletary. You know how much potential they have, and they could really benefit for your fantasy later in the year as your flex options.
Yeah, and I think he's going to have a better end to the year because, like I said, I believe in the talent. I think he's going to take over, and even if it is a committee, I think he'll be the lead of that committee. But yeah, he's not somebody I'd count on as a even an RB2 to start the season, but he'd be a nice depth option because after you get past, if you have done any mock drafts, you get past round 6, 7, you don't have any running back options that are, you know, starting options or have potential to be starting. You have those running backs that just catch passes, might be able to get Kareem Hunt that late, but he's a great option, I think, after the 5th round.
Yeah, I agree with that standpoint.
All right, the next running back taken, which I think was the last of the great running back options, was J.K. Dobbins to the Ravens, which he could take over Mark Ingram's job in the future, but I don't think he's going to do it this year.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting pick because it's a rushing offense, but it's rushing because of what Lamar Jackson can do. So I feel like when you have to think about it, you have to think about it as yes, I know Lamar Jackson is a quarterback, but you also have to think about him as a running back. And you have Lamar, Justice Hill, Mark Ingram, all the running back sneak plays they like to do, like who's actually going to get the ball. He goes into that more committee type running back options. And the fantasy standpoint, dynasty, yeah, Mark Ingram won't stay for too long. If he outshines Justice Hill, he definitely has big ability to rise up.
And yeah, that's what confuses me for the most part. Not the pick. I think he's a great fit for the offense, but
Mhm.
they had Justice Hill there, and I thought they really liked him, but maybe they don't I like him as a workhorse running back for the future.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll move on to Van Jefferson, taken by the Rams, wide receiver. He has a chance to fight with Josh Reynolds for that number 3 receiving role. They got rid of Brandon Cooks, trade him to the Texans. So you got Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. I'm not very excited for Van Jefferson this year. He's a good depth piece for the team, but nothing more than that for this year.
Yeah, I mean, nothing much to say. I just think he's a developing wide receiver. Um, Definitely not expecting anything from him in these first 2 years, but I mean, you always have potential there.
Yeah, all right, move on to Denzel Mims to the Jets, which this is he has a very clear path for targets this year, actually, because I don't think the Jets receiving core I thought it was one of the worst coming into the draft. And this was their second pick. They took Denzel Mims, who he has potential. We saw how athletic he was. They have Jamison Crowder there. He might be the number 1 option, but Denzel Mims has a chance to be the number 2 receiver. Of course, they still have Quincy Enunwa, but he probably has all the doctors' phone numbers on the hotline, speed dial because he gets injured so much.
Yeah, yeah. Jamison Crowder is still, I think, going to be that slot option that um, I just blanked on the QB there. What's his name?
Darnold.
Darnold, Sam Darnold. Yeah, I had Sam in my mind. Sam in my mind. Anyways, yeah, I think Jamison Crowder is definitely going to be that go-to guy, but I think Denzel Mims has that outside option they were missing. Um, so I think there's a lot of potential there, fantasy standpoint. It's more not that I'm worried about his ability. I'm worried about, like we've always said, Adam Gase. What is that man going to be thinking every week?
Yeah.
And you just, I had Jameson Crowder last year. He had great games because of being one of the only viable wide receiver options and being able to be body positioned open as a slot receiver. Um, but it really, I can't be confident even if with Denzel Mims being a great wide receiver. I just don't know about the system.
Yeah. I don't believe this offense will be great, but if for some reason it's better than we expect, Mims could be a good option. I'm sure Darnold loves that they picked him. I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully he doesn't love him too much to give him mono, kissing him.
Oh my gosh, you really come at it today.
Uh, I still think it's hilarious. Do you have anything else more to say on him?
I don't.
All right. Well, moving on past this is the last player we're going to talk about in the second round. But from this point on, it just seems like players that are taken to hurt values of players that we love. Up next is AJ Dillon for the Packers, and it just hurts Aaron Jones's value. We saw their coach said that they want to add a third running back to the mix. It's like, geez, we for so long we said free Aaron Jones, right? And then we saw him have a great year. I think he finished second overall in points. Now they add AJ Dillon, and the coach seems like he doesn't want to rely on Aaron Jones. So just hurtful.
Yeah. Fantasy standpoint, I keep saying that word. I should just say fantasy. Fantasy, Aaron Jones, he goes down according to the coach. But if he doesn't produce, I don't imagine they're going to roll it. I really feel like Aaron Jones is still going to be there as a running back, high running back two, if not still running back one. I know they even had that second running back in there last year. You didn't really know because Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones was doing so well. So I don't know how much to rely on AJ Dillon in this pick. This one is curious to me. I would still, if I was choosing to rely on Aaron Jones.
Yeah, I don't think it hurts Jones drastically, but I think it does hurt his value a little bit because the fact that they invested a second round pick into a running back and they felt like they needed to do that instead of a receiver.
Yeah.
That's just what concerns me for the most part. Wasn't a huge fan of Aaron Jones because of his inconsistency, anyways. But this just hurts him a bit more in my rankings overall.
What if they use him as a wide receiver? And they're like, that's what we were thinking all along, Packers
You too.
fans. AJ Dillon as a they're like, we just wanted to convert him into a wide receiver and really just steal a really good uh, physical person, not really caring where he plays, just put him as wide receiver.
If he was like a smaller, lighter, quicker guy, then I would say yeah, but he's more of that big bruiser type back. So,
Yeah, I know. That'd be funny just to see it happen.
all right, the joke's on you. We didn't take a receiver because Dylan's our receiver. Yeah. All right. Well, moving on to the third round, we have Antonio Gibson for the Redskins, and I think he's a pretty good prospect actually, but they might use him more in the receiving game. I can't remember who it was. I think it was somebody in the Redskins organization compared him to Christian McCaffrey and his ability, which is kind of crazy. But I think it just speaks to the that he's a great receiver too as a running back. But we talked about before, their running back room is already so crowded, so this just muddies the water even more.
Yeah, I mean, running back purely, it's for depth. With what they might have in plan for him, maybe they want to use him as like the next Chris Thompson, more as just that
Yeah,
catching running back. I mean, they never really ran with Chris Thompson. He was just always a weapon they threw to like a James White. So that could be just their depth for him. If Chris Thompson goes down, you have this guy for this guy, this guy for this guy. That might be what they're thinking. But yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's probably what they are doing because I don't think AP, Peyton Barber, Darius Geis, they can catch the ball, but they're not super proficient catching the ball. So maybe this is just okay. We need to replace Chris Thompson, get another great receiving back.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving on to Keyshawn Vaughn to the Buccaneers, which the Buccaneers were just behind the Chiefs, the second best landing spot for a running back, in my opinion. And then they take Keyshawn Vaughn, who isn't a bad player. So he actually has a chance if he can dethrone Ronald Jones from the starting running back position. He has potential there, and he can catch passes, which like Tom Brady likes to do.
Yeah. I mean, my only concern is that did they take a running back too late? And I think he has great potential. I mean, I'm not as much in the running backs as you are, but I mean, for a viable running back needy team, he's definitely could get more share and have that competition, have be worthy of that competition for what could come out of it. If Ronald Jones doesn't become proficient in passing, I mean, yeah, I could definitely see him being at least a great pass catcher type running back for that team.
Yeah, I think he'll at least have a role this year, and I don't expect him to, but he has the potential to take over the starting running back spot.
Hmm.
And then next is another real sad one. This just really hurts me. The Bills took Zach Moss, big bruising running back. Singletary was somebody we loved. He
I
was
know.
great last year. He was great. And then they take Zach Moss, who's I think is definitely gonna take away red zone opportunities from Devin Singletary. Because Zach Moss, he got a lot of touches inside the 10 in college. And Josh Allen already has that rushing ability in the red zone. So the fact that they add a big body running back, I don't think Singletary, he's probably not going to get a whole lot of touchdowns inside the 20 this year. Of course, he's still going to have that receiving role because he's a better pass catcher. He's probably going to be the lead back still, but it hurts his value. I was liking him as a high end running back too, but I think this honestly lowers him down maybe to a low end RB2 for me.
Yeah, I'm saying much respect to Frank Gore, but please don't play. I'd, I'd rather have Devin Singletary still doing what he's been doing. I mean, again, it's just I feel like the league's shifting into these type of running back committees to preserve how great they can be and also to keep them away from injury as much as possible. Which, for fantasy standpoint, that's just reducing it every year, and you're getting less pure three down running backs because everyone's becoming more physical freaks. The defense is going to be more hard hitting, and again, we've talked about how all these people could become pass catching running back. Now you have to keep going with these double sided um, swords or running backs. What I was trying to say, and with Devin Singletary, he's still gonna have that high end, like you said, pass catching role. Zach Moss being the pounder. It's just why can't they go to stick with that three down? three down type mentality, but it is what it is. And I say with fantasy standpoint, again, he keeps that rank back to status, and hopefully the team loves him and you get more of him than what we expect.
Yeah, and Singletary is a smaller guy, so I guess maybe they just don't trust him because we saw last year Frank Gore on short yardage situation was used over and over and over, and he was not getting the job done. It's like you're hurting your team using this guy. Put in Singletary, he's been showing out all year, and then I don't know if Frank Gore's gonna be back this season, but they've already replaced him.
Yeah. I mean,
All
good
right.
good for the Bills. I mean, that's gonna be good for the
Yeah.
team, good for their future as the success of winning a Super Bowl. But fantasy, yeah,
Yeah. No bueno. Okay. And the next, all the rest of the guys, I'll just shortly cover because I don't think they have a whole lot of value. Next is De'Aaron Evans, running back for the Titans, and they lost Deion Lewis. This just replaces him, in my
yeah,
opinion.
def piece. Nothing more to say.
Yeah. And then the Patriots, they added two tight ends in the third round. You have Devin Asiasi. I don't know this guy's name. And you have Dalton Keene. And I mean, you're a Patriots fan. What do you think of this?
I mean, they're definitely looking for that potential tight end to just come out from that lower end value. A lot of people are like, why didn't you get like these more well-known tight ends? And I'm not. I actually was really happy with the Patriots draft. I mean, they got they filled the holes that were on the team, even with being down in the lower rounds. And I think you have potential with double dipping at tight end to have one that stands out, and hopefully have one that also can develop with Jarrett Stidham. Again, everyone's like, why didn't you take a QB here? I mean, I believe that it was fairly clear they wanted to roll with Jarrett Stidham from the get-go, so I wasn't even expecting them to get a QB, except
Oh, you
maybe
want?
as depth. I'm really excited to see what Jarrett Stidham does. As a side note, I liked what I saw last year, and I mean, I feel like they feel confident. They just want someone to develop with him. As also, I believe one of these tight ends, if I was reading it right, is great with the run blocking too. So we'll see.
All right. Well, the Saints also took a tight end third round, Adam Troutman, just a depth piece. He is dynasty value because Jared Cook's a little older, but yeah, nothing more than that.
I mean,
Round four.
wait,
Do you have anything to add to that?
I think you just mentioned dynasty. If you want a tight end for dynasty for Patriots, you could reach in a later round one of those two tight ends for the dynasty standpoint. Not really in the first rounds, but someone that could have big potential in the future that you can win from.
All right, and then there's a few guys I'm going to cover in round four, and that's going to do it for the rookies. But I'm just going to list these four running backs, and you just respond right after. You got Joshua Kelly went to the Chargers running back, and I think this is good for Austin Eckler that they drafted a running back this late. You know, they didn't take one earlier, so this is good news for Austin Eckler for the most part. And then you have LaMichael Pirine to the Jets. They just a depth piece, you know, behind Le'Veon Bell. Anthony McFarland to the Steelers. Running back uh, James Conner. He's been injury prone, so that could be a name you look out for. Anthony McFarland on the waiver wire potentially. And you got DJ Davis running back to the Seahawks. And
Dallas,
we saw
DJ
Penny.
Dallas.
We saw Penny. He's not going to start the year because of injury most likely. And Chris Carson's coming off a hip injury, so he has potential to be the backups to start the year. What are your thoughts on those guys?
But yeah, I'm high on Austin Eckler, and I really don't think that's going to impact his value. I still think if anyone's going to impact his value, it's still going to be Justin Jackson, def piece. Jets, again, I don't see him outshining Le'Veon Bell. I really think Adam Gase, as bad as the systems are, he does believe in that three down running back type situation that has all other traits, and so hopefully they Le'Veon Bell more. Anthony McFarland, def piece. I know that if the running back one gets injured, they did have the other guy,
Jalen Samuels, he's a pretty good.
yeah,
Yeah.
Jalen Samuels. So I don't see him really outshining him. Um, so we'll see what happens there. DJ
And they have
Dallas.
Benny Snell actually. I'm remembering.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. I think that's what I was thinking. Um, I don't think he. It really just depends on injuries. They just want injury security because of what happened last year. But they also more injuries because they didn't rely on their QB ever. Um, DJ, is it Dallas? DJ Dallas?
yeah, that's correct.
All right. Def Piece again. They had two injuries last year. He could be a great project for them to develop into a good running back. These are all more from team standpoints. I don't see them really impacting the fantasy. And yeah, and I'm gonna go into my next person I wanted to mention that I talked about as a late round good pickup, which was Antonio Gandy Golden. He went to the Redskins. Not the best place I would have wanted him to go. Keep stumbling on my words, but I mean, as a potential to outshine some people, obviously you have Terry McLaurin. He's not gonna outshine him, but if you want, I think he has the potential to work his way up into that system and really develop with Dwayne Haskins. So I'm excited to hopefully see him on the field this year.
Yeah, overall, out of those group of guys, yeah, the only notable thing, like I said, is I'm just glad the Chargers didn't take a guy in the first 3 rounds of the running back position because, we really like Austin Eckler. We want to see him have a big role this year.
Yeah.
All right. And the last notable thing I'm going to mention is Matt Breida was traded to the Dolphins, and they didn't draft a running back at all. Signed Jordan Howard, so looks like this is going to be their 1-2 punch, and it's pretty good news for Jordan Howard because I don't think Breida is a big volume kind of guy. He's going to probably be catching some passes, be a change of pace guy in my opinion. And Jordan Howard could see 200, 250 carries this year potentially. So he's a guy who could be a potential flex if the Dolphins offense has fairly good success.
Yeah, not too long ago, Justin Howard was like being a great pounding type running back with the Bears, and I really liked him when he
Even
was
on the
there.
Eagles,
Yeah,
he
even
did
on the
good.
Eagles, he never did like terrible, and I think giving his chance to shine, having that um, offensive line really got bolstered from this draft. Great potential there.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go ahead and mention that there were some offensive lines that were obviously improved in this draft.
Mhm.
And you just mentioned the Dolphins, and they took Austin Jackson in the first round, and they also took a guard in the second and fourth round. So that definitely improves the outlook to that offensive line. And then you got the Browns. They drafted Jedrick Wills in the first round, and they added Jack Conklin, which thank the Lord because their offensive line. They did pretty good run blocking, but pass blocking I didn't think they were very good personally. So having those two tackles there to protect Mayfield, that's going to help Beckham and Landry in those pieces. Although there's rumors that Beckham might be traded, who knows? And then, the Giants, Jets, and Bucks, all three of them drafted tackle in the first round. And the Bucks, of course, they got Gronk, and a lot of people aren't realizing that he's a great blocking tight end. So that helps the team overall and Brady, the running game. Uh, the Jets, yeah, they added Mekhi back in the first round, but they also retooled their offensive line through free agency. So could potentially be a better offensive line. And of
Mhm.
course, the Giants, fourth overall, drafted Andrew Thomas. They also added a tackle in the third round and a guard in the fifth. So that I think that helps Barkley. I mean, he
Yeah,
was already going to be a top 3 pick. Now that I think it just helps him even more. And then I thought the Cardinals got kind of a steal with Josh Jones in the third round because some people saw him as the fifth or sixth best tackle. Them getting him at the third round, when I was kind of disappointed when they didn't get one in the first round. They didn't have a second round pick. Of course, that second round pick was the Andrew Hopkins, the trade. So yeah, I'm. That's pretty interesting to see which offensive lines are going to be better to impact, the running back's value and the quarterbacks, of course, pass protecting.
yeah. I mean, I'm excited for what the Cardinals were able to do with. I mean, they obviously chose the best player available, and then went with what. I mean, they. I think I agree with you. They got a steal there. Giants. Saquon Barkley was a beast before having a great offensive line, having potential to even have a great offensive line. These could be out of this world. Buccaneers with their pass catching ability already. Um, I mean, you're just helping every team. I don't see any losers from who they drafted with the offensive lines.
Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna go ahead and cover some running back losers and winners. We kind of covered a little bit when we talked about, Aaron Jones and Devin Singletary. But Miles Sanders, he's a big winner because the Eagles didn't draft running
Mhm.
back. Then I don't think they drafted one at all. They didn't draft one high. So the fact that they just have Miles Sanders and Boston Scott, it looks like Miles Sanders is going to have a really big role in that offense.
Yeah, that's something to be excited for.
Yeah, and also the Falcons did not draft a running back, so we kind of already expected Todd Gurley to have a big role, but this just secures that. I don't think they have great running backs behind him. I don't think Brian Hill and Ito Smith are that great. Those guys are not going to demand touches over Todd Gurley.
Yeah.
And I mentioned Jordan Howard already, and Kenyon Drake. I think he's a very big winner actually because, like I said, I loved him, but there was also concern that they could draft a running back. Of course, they had traded David Johnson away. But not only did they not draft a running back, but they also got Josh Jones, like I said, who I thought was a steal. So my love for Kenyon Drake is secure for the season officially.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then next two guys we already mentioned was Austin Eckler and Saquon Barkley.
So yeah, I think that covers it all.
Yeah, and running back losers, top of the list, Damian Williams. We have Clyde Edwards-Helaire stepping right in. So Damian Williams, he'll probably still roll, but he his chances of being a starter are pretty low, in my opinion.
Uh,
And you have Kerryon Johnson and Marlon Mack. They both had great running backs added to that backfield with DeAndre Swift and Jonathan Taylor. So those guys, they could have been potential RB2s, flex options, and now they probably drop out of that category altogether. At least RB2. There's potential to be flex if they start off the season with a job somehow over the rookies.
yeah, and I think what I've said has already covered it when we talked about them prior. I think my mouth might be dry or something. I'm really stuttering a lot. Anyways, yeah, I think that what we mentioned before already really covers um, what we thought about them, but having it clear about the winners and losers. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Darrell Henderson. Of course, I mentioned Cam Akers.
Hmm.
He had a path to potentially win the job. He still does, but Cam Akers being there definitely limits that, potential of being that, and I don't think he will be that personally.
I'm excited for that. I'm excited for the Rams.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then Mark Ingram, I don't think he's hurt too bad. I already wasn't super excited about him because, he had a ton of touchdowns last year being on an offense that was scoring a lot of points. But I personally don't think he's going to replicate that touchdown total. He's a year older, and they added J.K. Dobbins. So he could potentially still be RB2, but I'd be much more comfortable with him as a flex option.
Yeah, I think with Ari, how they did rushing before, he only excelled because of those touchdowns. And if you're not getting touchdowns on that team, it's really hard to have fantasy value.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
And then we mentioned Aaron Jones and Devin Singletary, who, Zach Moss and AJ Dillon are added there. So Aaron Jones probably isn't hurt as bad as Devin Singletary, in my opinion, but they're both guys that are going to be great options regardless.
Yeah, I can't help but agree with that.
All right, well, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it off there. We covered a lot of names.
Yeah.
The draft was exciting. It was it was I thought it went well because it was all virtual. I expected there to be more problems personally, but I think they did a great job with what they, were handed.
Yeah, I think uh, what was funny one time was I don't know who the commissioner was talking to, but he was talking to a team behind him, and he had revealed like a hint right before he revealed it, and they flipped to him too early. And then you're like, well, I know who it's gonna be because of that hint. And then he just like reads it off. You're like, yeah, no kidding. And there's a few of those moments there. Yeah,
Yeah, and they kept the virtual booze. Goodell's like, let me keep that spirit alive. That's so funny. I thought that was hilarious. He just embraces the fact that he just gets booed every single year.
yeah, it was good.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the FF Fanatics 11 and also on YouTube. Subscribe and like the video. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, thank you.